The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its host, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss the murder in your family on this podcast, please be sure to visit themurderinmyfamily.com for more information. You can support this podcast by visiting patreon.com/themurderinmyfamily. This episode may contain unsettling material or subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Thank you for joining me for episode 60 of The Murder in My Family. I'm your host, Mike Morford. In this episode, we'll be diving into the case of a young mother who was murdered while working her shift inside a busy department store during the middle of the day. And somehow, no one saw a thing. We'll jump into this case after some quick housekeeping. Independent podcasts like this one depend on word of mouth to bring in new listeners. So if you find that you enjoy this podcast, please take a minute to rate and review it wherever you listen to your podcast. And be sure to introduce a friend to the show and invite them to listen. With your help, The Murder in My Family can continue to grow and reach a new audience. To learn more about the show or the cases we discuss, please visit themurderinmyfamily.com. You can also find us on Twitter with the handle @MurderInMyFam, or by searching for the Murder in My Family podcast on Facebook. If you'd like to support the show through a Patreon donation, it's always appreciated, and you can do so by visiting patreon.com/themurderinmyfamily. Benefits of supporting the show on Patreon include early access to ad-free episodes of the show, plus bonus content not heard in regular episodes. Support may also include thank you cards, stickers, and more. If you prefer to, you can also support the show through a PayPal donation by visiting paypal.me/themurderinmyfamily. In each episode, I'll give shoutouts to any new supporters. In this episode, I'd like to thank Amy Barron Manoram and Susie Summers. And thank you to all of the supporters that generously donate and help keep the show growing and improving. One more note before we get started. Please consider supporting any of the sponsors that you hear on The Murder in My Family, the way that those sponsors support the show. It's with our sponsors' support that this show can go on and continue to provide a platform to share these stories with you in every episode. Thank you. And now on with the show. Janette Roberson was born to Ralph and Marion Fisher on October 25, 1955, in Detroit, Michigan. Janette had two sisters, Marlene and Lana, and one brother, Kelvin. At age 16, Janette married Alvin Roberson, and the couple had two children. Janette was strikingly beautiful with blonde hair and a captivating smile. She was a happy, kind, and likable young woman who would do anything for anyone. In 1980, Alvin, Janette, and their two children relocated from Georgia to Reed City, Michigan, a small community of around 2,400 people. Janette's mother, Marion, lived in Reed City, where she worked as a city clerk. Janette was happy to be close to her family in her new town. Janette loved being a mother, but also wanted to have a job and some extra cash. In 1982, Janette landed a job working in the pet department in the basement of the Gamble store, which is now Reed City Hardware, located at 114 West Upton, in Reed City. At around 11:30 a.m. on January 19, 1983, Gene Johnson, the director of maintenance at Reed City Hospital, walked into Gamble's to buy some supplies. Gene was a regular customer there. Standing in the middle of the store near the stairs to the basement was Janette Roberson. Wanting to be helpful, Janette kindly asked Gene if she could help him, and he jokingly responded that he knew the store probably better than she did, from being a longtime customer. Gene asked Janette where everyone was, and she told them they were unloading the delivery truck. It was truck day at the store, the day when lots of supplies came in. Gene looked around and saw the store owners, David and Bonnie Engels, unloading merchandise through the two back doors. David's brother John was also assisting. Two other employees, Flossie Ernest and Angie Tilley, were there manning two cash registers, one up front and one in the middle of the store next to the basement stairs. At around noon, Janette left the store for a bit to go pick up one of her kids at school. After dropping the child off at the babysitter's, Janette returned to Gamble's. Between 3:30 and 3:45 p.m., A couple named Terry and Gladys Cookers entered Gamble's to purchase some items. A few minutes after they entered the store, Angie Tully went downstairs to the back room near the pet department to bring up some stuff from the basement. She was horrified to discover Janette's lifeless body lying in a pool of blood. Janette had been battered and beaten. Frantic and distraught, Angie ran upstairs, and John Ingalls called police, who arrived shortly after. The authorities remained on scene for several hours. Reed City Police notified Janette's mother, Marion. In turn, Marion contacted Alvin Roberson to break the news to him that his wife was dead. Working together on the investigation was Reed City Police Department, Osceola County Sheriff's Department, Michigan State Police, and Northern County's Evidence Service. Detectives interviewed the store employees the next day, and the medical examiner performed an autopsy on Janette's body. Many details have never been released, but what we do know is the attack was extremely vicious and sadistic, and sexual in nature. Janette had been badly beaten with several different blunt objects. The autopsy report is reportedly too horrific to stomach, according to what has been said in the media. Police have never said what type of weapons were used in the attack due to the ongoing investigation. Officials estimated Janette was killed sometime between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m., and she was last seen by other employees at around 1:30. Detective Sergeant George Pratt of the Michigan State Police in Reed City told the media they had no motive or suspect in Janette's murder. Reed City hadn't seen a murder in the previous 8 years, and they now had a bizarre and shocking one on their hands. Police thought they had their first suspect. They wanted to question a man who had been in the store the day before the murder, but they learned that he was leaving town on a bus. Officers stopped the bus in the town of Big Rapids and took the man in for questioning. After interviewing him, they didn't believe he had anything to do with the murder and let him go. Police have always believed Janette's murder was a crime of passion, and that perhaps Janette may have turned down the advances of an admirer. A couple of days later, prosecutor James Tulaski spoke with the Pioneer newspaper and stated that Janette's cause of death was a blow to the head from a heavy blunt object. The article also went on to say police were looking for 2 women who purchased fish equipment and may have witnessed the crime. The article added that the women were not suspects, but police felt that they may have important information concerning the bizarre and brutal murder of Janette Roberson. Unfortunately, these 2 women that were sought by police never came forward, and they've never been identified. The Pioneer article also detailed Tulaski's description of the crime scene. He described the basement as, quote, comprised of half pet supplies and half storage area. He went on to add that Janette had a good working relationship with her fellow employees and said, quote, there have been no reported problems in the store during the weeks leading up to the murder, unquote. Tulaski also addressed the possibility of someone hiding in the basement before the attack, but he was quoted as saying, there's no evidence to suggest that. In February 1983, police requested the public's assistance in identifying a white male who they thought may have had evidence relating to the murder. The mystery man was believed to be in Gamble sometime between 2 and 3 p.m., shortly before the estimated time Janette was killed. The man was between 20 and 30 years of age with light to blondish brown hair. He stood about 5'9", weighed approximately 170 pounds, and may have been wearing a blue jacket. Based on several eyewitness accounts, including employee Flossie Ernest, police produced 3 sketches of this man and showed them to the media. Detective Pratt and Detective James E. Southworth of the Osceola County Sheriff's Department stressed to the public that while officers were interested in speaking with this man, he wasn't considered a suspect. They simply hoped that he may have seen or heard something that could have been useful to the investigation. But this man never came forward, and he's never been identified. As is typical in most investigations of this type, the police focused on people closest to Janette, including her husband Alvin, and other people that were close to her. They moved outward from there. Police learned that Alvin and Janette had recently separated, and it was discovered that Alvin was having an affair with a woman he later married. Additionally, Alvin was laid off for the better part of the week Janette was murdered, from January 17th to January 21st, and He had apparently stopped into the store to see Janette multiple times on the day of her murder. While this information may seem to support a motive, an opportunity to murder his wife, police ruled him out as a suspect. But how and why they did is unclear. Over the years following Janette Roberson's murder, police continued to follow up on leads, including one that came in about Janette receiving obscene phone calls leading up to her murder. However, that lead didn't produce enough information to lead to an arrest. In 2014, police reviewed old interview notes and evidence to come up with some new theories. Reed City Police Chief Chuck Davis confirmed 4 new names of individuals the police were investigating. Police haven't released any further information about these people. Despite the lack of an arrest, Janette's family has never given up hope that her case will be solved. A few years ago, family and friends of Janette started annual walks in Janette's memory in Reed City. The purpose of these walks is to keep Janette's case alive in the community, so that more information might come in, and her case might finally be solved. In 2017, a state police task force promised to take a fresh look at the case to find out who killed Janette. Detectives were putting together binders full of background information and ordering evidence collected at the time of the murder to be resubmitted for new testing. New technologies such as contact DNA, testing for trace evidence, and even familial DNA or deathbed confession may be the only ways this case will get solved. Until that day comes, Janette's family will continue with the annual walks. They also have a Facebook page set up called Who Murdered Janette Roberson? Lana Jarvie has been wondering who murdered her sister now for the better part of 4 decades. She sat down with me to discuss Janette's case. That conversation is coming up in just a moment. Hi listeners, I'd like to tell you about our first sponsor today, Best Fiends. Many of you know that true crime is my passion, but even someone like me needs a break from it every once in a while. So when I need a mental palate cleanser, my go-to refresher is Best Fiends. Best Fiends is a fun game that has a great puzzle-solving aspect to it, and an ongoing story that unfolds as you play. What I really like about Best Fiends is that the game really stimulates your brain, and it can be played casually. It's got a great-looking design and bright, bold colors. This past week, I really stepped my game up and jumped up 50 levels, and I'm having lots of fun in the process. I try to play every day. What's great is that Best Fiends updates the game monthly, with new levels and events, so it never gets old. It's hours of fun right at your fingertips, and you can even play offline. With over 100 million downloads and tons of 5-star reviews, Best Fiends is a must-play. Download Best Fiends free on the Apple App Store or Google Play. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends. Our next sponsor is BetterHelp. Is there something that interferes with your happiness or is preventing you from achieving your goals? If so, BetterHelp Online Counseling is there for you. You can connect with your professional counselor in a safe and private online environment. It's so convenient. You can now get help on your own time and at your own pace. You can schedule secure video or phone sessions, plus chat and text with your therapist. Licensed professional counselors are available who are specialized in anger issues, depression, stress, anxiety, and so much more. Anything you share is confidential. If you're not happy with your counselor for any reason, you can request a new one at any time for no additional charge. There are 3,000 U.S. licensed therapists across all 50 states, and BetterHelp is available worldwide. Start communicating in under 24 hours. BetterHelp is available on desktop, mobile web, Android, and iOS apps. BetterHelp isn't a crisis line, but it is secure, convenient, and professional, and financially it is available for those who qualify. If you're a regular listener of this show, then you know that sometimes we all have a lot to deal with, and BetterHelp can help you through those times. Best of all, it's a truly affordable option. The Murder My Family listeners get 10% off your first month with discount code FAMILY. So why not get started today? Go to BetterHelp.com/family. Simply fill out a questionnaire to help them assess your needs and get matched with a counselor you'll love. That's BetterHelp.com/family. Thanks for joining us today, Lana, to discuss Janette's case with us.
Thank you for having me.
If you can you tell us a little bit about Janette and what kind of person she was, or maybe share some of your memories of her?
Janette was a homegrown girl, I guess. That's the best way to put her. Personality-wise, like the 1950s homemaker, crocheting, sewing all her kids' clothes, baking. If a neighbor needed help, she'd give it. Gardening. Just the girl next door person.
So she really embraced that family role of mother and wife and homemaker.
Yes, she did. Yes, very much so.
How long had she been working at the store before she was killed?
I do believe it was about 6 to 8 months.
Getting that job, was that something she was looking forward to just to keep her busy or just to get a little extra money?
It was mostly for the money part of it. Her kids were in school, so that would be a perfect job for her. She loved animals.
So she worked in the right department there, I guess.
Yes.
And at the time of her murder, she had 2 children, and she was married to Alvin. It seemed as if they were just a typical young family. Was there anything out of the ordinary in their lives that you know of?
Not that I know of, other than I don't think Alvin was very happy up here, and it's rumored that there was an affair going on at the time.
Is that something that you think that Janette would have known about? And if she did know about it, what do you think her reaction might have been?
I don't think she knew about it. I don't know what her reaction would have been, actually, because she was a Jehovah's Witness and Alvin wasn't. So I don't know.
If you can, just take us back to that day in January 1983 when Janette was murdered in the gamble store. How did you personally get that news, and what goes through your mind in a situation like that?
Well, I had just gotten out of the shower. I was 7 months pregnant at the time, and I get this knock on my front door, and I lived downstate at the time, and there's these 2 young state police officers standing there, and they said, "You need to call your mother." And they wouldn't tell me why I needed to call my mother. So I went next door and called my mother. My brother answered the phone, and he says, "Jeanette's been murdered." And I said, "That really isn't," and I said the F word, "funny." And he says, "No, I'm serious." And I said, "How?" He says, "I can't tell you that. She was murdered." I said, "Okay, I'll be up there as soon as I can get packed and go." Took my kids up there, and yeah.
And was that sort of shocking to you that it was just casually something that you found out?
I guess the best way I can put it is when you're growing up, you don't expect anything like that, especially in my family. It seems surreal. It was like, this is not happening. When I get up there, it's going to be a big joke. Like, they're playing a prank or something, but it never hit home. It still really hasn't. I mean, I never got to see her in her coffin. To me, that would be closure. I would know she was dead. But I was not allowed to see her body. So it just doesn't seem real. I mean, I know she's dead in my brain. It just doesn't seem real.
But you don't have that final piece of information to visually confirm it for you. Now,
yes.
To your knowledge, did Janette have any enemies or anyone that might have wanted to hurt her that you know of?
No. If you talk to anybody that knew Janette, she was just a very, very kind, loving person. It just boggles the mind that somebody could do this. And with what was done is just, it's unreal.
Now, were you and Janette pretty close?
No, we weren't. Our family's very dysfunctional. Extremely dysfunctional. So no, we weren't.
So there wasn't necessarily like a secret sharing where if she had a problem with somebody, she might have confided in you, nothing like that?
No.
You mentioned, she was a mother, a wife, a homemaker. She had that part-time job. She was involved in Jehovah's Witness. Were there any other activities or things that she participated in that might have put her on the radar of somebody that might have wanted to hurt her that you know of?
She liked cars. She liked, restoring cars. She loved cars too. I don't think would have, because Alvin liked it, and I don't think that would have been any reason to do this in that area.
So no way to know that she came into contact with anybody through cars that might have done this.
No.
And you mentioned that there wasn't anyone that would want to hurt her. I know sometimes in these cases, somebody is murdered and a family member or friend says, "Oh my God, I think I know who might have done it." Was there anything like that for you? Any suspects in your mind that you thought about and said, could they have done this?
I have 6 or 7 now in mind that could have, because Janette was a very friendly person, very outgoing. If she never met a stranger, let's put it that way. And she was very naive. Yeah, and I think she probably turned her back on whoever did this and just, they didn't like that.
You mentioned you have 6 or 7 suspects. That's all these years later now that you sort of have been investigating and trying to figure out what happened to your sister. Is that how the suspects that you have in mind came about?
Yeah. At the beginning of it, it was like, okay, I couldn't believe anybody in this little tiny town would do anything like this. But the more you dig, the more you find out things. And yeah, I know my sister wasn't perfect, but she was perfect for us. And when you have this, as horrific as this crime was, this person running around, or maybe even dead now, who knows? You look at these people that keep popping up, and it's like, okay, there's a serious issue here. I don't get it.
In that town, there was more shady people possibly than you suspected early on?
Oh, yeah.
Without naming them necessarily, can you give us a little bit of background and some of the reasons why some of these people are suspicious to you?
All of them knew Janette. 3 of them had not had their DNA taken. They were in her circle. Let's put it that way.
And you mentioned the circle. The police typically will find people that know the victim and work their way out and rule people out and get further and further out. I know, obviously, police considered Alvin a suspect, and I think you and I talked before we started recording that in your mind, in your family's mind, you didn't think Alvin was capable of that. Is that true, that you think that he had nothing to do with this?
Well, I don't know about the rest of my family because they're not really interested in getting this solved. I personally don't think he had anything to do with it. But since we've talked, I think he might have known who did it. And if that's the case, then I want him prosecuted.
And when you say you think he may have known who did it, is that known as in ahead of time, or maybe found out afterwards and didn't say anything?
Found out afterwards.
Okay. And as far as you know, as far as I've been reading and researching, have police officially ruled Alvin out?
I've heard 3 or 4 times in what I've read that they have, but according to what they say now, nobody's ruled out. But again, you've got at least, as far as I know, 3 people that have not had their DNA taken and didn't have their DNA taken the date of that murder. And they were in the store at the time.
And let's talk about the DNA a little bit. Obviously, back then when the murder happened, they didn't know anything about DNA. And, if they had, obviously they would have saved it. But any evidence that they did have, they likely would have preserved the best they could. Can you comment on what the police position is regarding DNA and whether there is any that might solve the case?
Do you want me to get into that?
Well, if you can't, if there's stuff you can't say, definitely skip it. But if there's something that's publicly available that you can share that.
Well, I don't know if this has anything to do with your question or not. My brother was not down there in that store that day. He had to give a sample. There was a couple other people that were not in that store that day. They had to give samples, but the people that were in the store didn't have to, which is wrong. As far as the other stuff, I want the DNA samples that they have out in the world, and they won't put them out there. They will only use CODIS database.
Okay.
That's all they'll use.
So there's a little bit of butting heads with what you'd like to see done and what they've done so far.
There's a lot of butting heads. It's an ongoing problem. No communication, lack of communication, lack of just, I'm not going there.
Yeah. And that's got to be, I mean, without saying anything more about that, it's got to be frustrating that after 36 years that you're still not getting any kind of results.
Yes, but see, the thing is for, I'm going to say up until about 8 years ago, my daughter, my family, well, I did, thought this case was solved. And
tell us a little bit about why that is that you thought it was solved.
It was never in the news. It was never, nobody communicated with my mother. Nobody communicated with me. Nobody communicated with my brother. There was none. Zip. And, we thought, okay, well, they found the person that did it and they prosecuted him. It didn't make the news. I didn't live up here at the time, so I wouldn't have known. And my daughter was surfing the internet and came across the story, and she called me and went, "Mom, this is not solved. We need to do something." So, yeah, that got us to where we are today.
And that was a bit of a wake-up call, knowing that the case wasn't solved after all those years.
Yeah.
Did you think back in 1983 when it happened that it would be solved quickly, or were you hopeful that
I did? I again, maybe I'm a little bit naive, but we have police force, and they're there to do things like that. And it didn't help, that my mother never talked about it, my brother never talked about it, nobody ever talked about it at all. Nobody. I mean, it was like she was here one second and gone the next, and she just was invisible after that. And she's a human being. She deserves something. It's
almost like it was a taboo subject to talk about her.
Yeah.
And one thing I was curious about, that the sketch that they released in her case, I can only imagine that you've looked at that picture a million times and wondered if you knew that person. Is that true that you probably did do that at some time?
Yes, but the thing that bothers me about that sketch is it's a composite sketch. It's not a one-person sketch. It's a composite of, that person. How do I put this? There's one person on my suspect list that matches. I mean, to a T. But that's not really a suspect. That's just a person that is wanted in questioning. And he's already admitted he was down there. Call his place of work and find out where he's going to be and go and see him.
I know some of the things, some of the details in the case haven't been released publicly, but you're aware of some things regarding the case that are pretty disturbing. In your mind, what kind of person, based on everything you know, what kind of person do you think we're dealing with here that did this to her?
A monster. Janette was like 5'1", probably 105 pounds. She was tiny. And the person that did this caused enough damage to kill her 4 times over. There's a person out there that has no regard for human life at all. None.
And they definitely seem to have some predator type qualities to take the chance to be in that location, in that public store where anybody could have come in. Do you think that says that they were dangerous enough that they might do that thing, something like that again?
Yes, and trust me, I've looked in every state that I'm capable of looking in, and I can find nothing like that. I don't know if I'm missing it, or I think that whatever transpired down there, Janette made this person extremely angry. I mean, to the point where they probably didn't know what they were doing. I mean, they knew at the beginning and they knew at the end, but they didn't know in the middle what they were doing.
Almost like a frenzy type attack?
Yeah.
So over these years, since you found out that the case hadn't been solved after all, what are some of the things you've done to sort of be your own investigator in the case to try and dig into it and find out more?
Well, it's kind of hard to do that because, you know, you get no communication from the police. It's still an active cold case. We've held walks. We've tried to get a hold of people that knew her. We did have a person in our group on Facebook that wrote a book about this, which was not sanctioned by us because that's not what it was supposed to be in the beginning. But she's gathered a lot of information. Mostly walks, encourage people to do the tip lines. If, you know, we have a Facebook page for Janette. We have groups for Janette. If anybody wants to give us a tip, we kind of chase it down, check it out, and then send everything to the police as far as we can go.
So anything that comes in, you sort of will hand over to the police and hopefully they follow up on that stuff.
Yeah, hopefully.
And what is the Facebook group, by the way?
There's one called Who Murdered Janette Roberson? And then Janette has her own Facebook page also.
Just under her.
And that's monitored by, excuse me, 3 of us. And then the group is monitored by 3 of us.
So if anyone out there listening does have information, they could simply send it to you at the pages and you'll turn it over to police. Yep,
I will do that. She's a grandma now. She would have been a great grandmother.
And does that just make you even angrier that she missed out on that part of her life?
It does. This person took so much. Some of the pictures that Janette used to draw are just gorgeous. The world, this person took that out of the world. The people that she could have helped, they took that out of the world. The knowledge that she could have given her grandkids and her great grandkids, and the love that she could have given them, and just they don't want me to meet them. They don't.
And you mentioned a little bit before about your family having a little bit of dysfunction going on. How, for your parents, how was their reaction to the murder?
My dad wrote that letter. He was very frustrated because he didn't get any answers either. My mother buried it. Wouldn't talk about it. If her name was brought up, she changed the subject. She could never walk into a pet store. She never asked questions. She never dug. She just put all her, I'm going to use the term faith, in the police.
Do you think in her situation, because it was just too painful to keep digging through that stuff and bringing it back up?
It just seems kind of out of character for my mother, because my mother was the type that if you did something even a little bit not right, you'd hear about it. You'd know, in no uncertain terms. And it just seemed like she was defeated.
And are your parents both alive, or are they deceased now?
So they're deceased.
And so they went to their graves never knowing who did this to their daughter.
Yeah. And so is my oldest sister.
So it sounds like, in a lot of ways, if whatever was going on that was dysfunctional, maybe her death made that even worse to an extent.
It did. Yeah, it did, because I don't talk to my brother anymore. Her kids don't talk to me, so it's divided us where it shouldn't have.
You think it
But
maybe should have brought you together more?
I do, yes. But I've always had a very defined sense of justice ever since I was little. It just, if something was not correct, I'd try to correct it. Not everybody's like that.
So with that sense of justice, you want to see the case solved, obviously.
Mm-hmm. And I'll go to the next one that's been unsolved in this county since 1996. There's 7 of them.
And do you think that's a reflection maybe on the police?
I do. Because they were all under one detective.
So to have that many unsolved murders in that time frame, you think just seems reflective for the police and that investigator in particular?
Yes, I do.
Now, are you hoping that the case, obviously, I would think is still open because it's an open investigation, which you said, but do you want to see them shake something up and try something different and maybe think outside the box a little bit and see if they can get different results?
I would enjoy that immensely. I seriously would. I would enjoy that. Like I said, we've had walks, and this last year was the first time in 6 walks that we've had that the Michigan State Police has actually shown up. One time. So, I'm dumbfounded, but that's just me.
Yeah, you would think that they would want to be involved in, participating in stuff like that and at least keeping the family up to date on what's going on.
The city police has been involved every year. They've shown up. But the state police is not, and that's who has the jurisdiction over this.
Now, did the city police have it originally and the state police took it over, or was it always the state police?
No, city police had it first. The crime scene was messed up from the beginning. And they will tell you it wasn't. But if you read everything that's out there that's been published, you can pretty much tell by what you read that it was messed up and not done properly, not done with protocol. Things weren't followed like they were supposed to be. And even I know that.
Are there any things you want to correct or that you can talk about that are out there that the public sees that aren't correct or you think are not accurate?
Yes. Janette was not having an affair. Janette was not doing drugs. Janette was not a party girl. Janette did not see a shipment of drugs come in. It was not a mafia hit. There were no tunnels. I think that's about it.
So it definitely sounds like there's been a lot of things talked about or mentioned that just aren't true.
Yeah.
Well, one last thing I wanted to ask you, and that's if the person that did this awful deed is out there listening and they could hear you now, what would you say to them?
Turn yourself in before I find you, because I will find you. I don't care how mad a person makes you. It's that there's no excuse for that. None. I want to know why. Like I said, I know she wasn't perfect. What possesses a person to think that they have the right to do that to another human being?
Thank you once again for joining me for this episode of The Murder of My Family. Please, if you have information about the murder of Janette Roberson, you're asked to call Reed City Police Chief Chuck Davis at 231-832-3743. You can also call the Michigan State Police at 989-773-5951. Thanks goes out to Debbie Buck at TrueCrimeDiva.com for writing and research assistance in this episode. We'll be back here soon with an all-new episode of The Murder in My Family. And before you go, remember that every murder victim means something to somebody.